Most people think meditation is for monks, yogis, or people trying to escape the real world. That was me too. I thought meditation was about sitting still, closing your eyes, and doing absolutely nothing while the world moved on. I didn't get it. I thought it was passive, weak, even boring. But let me tell you something most people won't. Meditation is one of the most aggressive acts of self-discipline you can do. Because when you sit in silence, with no distractions, no noise, and no escape, your mind shows you everything you've been running from, and that's where the shift begins. When I started meditating, I didn't do it to become a millionaire. I did it because I was tired. Tired of being distracted, tired of being anxious, tired of waking up and feeling like I was already behind. I wanted clarity. What I didn't realize at the time was that clarity is exactly what creates wealth, you. See, meditation doesn't give you money, but it makes you the kind of person who attracts it. It rewires your brain. Scientifically, it literally changes the structure of your mind. Your prefrontal cortex thickens, your amygdala shrinks. Emotionally, it gives you the space between stimulus and response. And in business, in relationships, in every area that matters, that space is where power lives. Before meditation, I was reactive. Someone sends me a bad message. I respond with emotion. Someone gives me a new idea. I shoot it down or impulsively run with it. I couldn't think clearly. Everything was noise, every notification, every opinion, every comparison. My brain was like a browser with 37 tabs open, and one of them was playing music I couldn't even find. Meditation forced me to close those tabs, one by one. It didn't happen overnight, but over the first couple of weeks I noticed I was more aware. I'd catch myself getting triggered, and instead of reacting, I paused. That pause was powerful, because inside that pause, I got to ask myself real questions. Why am I feeling this way? What outcome do I actually want? Is this emotion helping me or hijacking me? Those questions, repeated daily, started changing how I approached money. I stopped chasing quick wins. I stopped impulsively buying things to feel better. I stopped panicking when things didn't go my way. Most importantly, I stopped seeking external permission to take action. I started acting from intention, not emotion. There's a reason billionaires and high performers talk about stillness. It's not just a nice to have, it's their edge. Because when everyone else is running around trying to look busy, a calm mind sees what others can't. Opportunities aren't loud, they don't scream, they whisper. And if your mind is full of clutter, you'll miss them. That's what meditation gave me. Mental bandwidth. When most people were reacting to the latest trend, I was quietly executing a long-term vision. While others were second-guessing themselves, I was listening to my inner voice. That voice got louder the quieter I became. And here's what's crazy. Once I started getting clear, once I started aligning with who I wanted to be, the world began to reflect that back to me. The right people started showing up. The right ideas started flowing. I wasn't hustling in chaos anymore. I was moving in purpose. I wasn't frantic. I was focused. Let me give you an example. Around day 45, I had a business idea I had sat on for over a year. I'd thought about it, doubted it, overanalyzed it, and buried it. But one morning, after a 20-minute meditation, the idea resurfaced, but this time, with certainty. I didn't hear a voice, but I felt a calm knowing. That day, I made the first move. Within weeks, it gained traction. Not because the idea was revolutionary, but because I finally had the clarity and courage to act. And this happened again and again. Things I used to overthink became obvious. Decisions I used to delay became immediate. Because I'd built a habit of listening, not to the world, but to myself. And when you develop that kind of inner stability, it's only a matter of time before your outer world catches up. So no, it wasn't a coincidence. I didn't get lucky. Meditation didn't magically drop money in my lap, but it made me someone worth betting on, someone consistent, someone grounded, someone who could delay gratification, think long-term, and keep showing up. That's the formula. It's not complicated. It's just rare. And the truth is, anyone can access it. You don't need to move to the mountains. You don't need candles, crystals, or a guru. You just need to sit still, every morning, for 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes. That's it. Sit with your breath, watch your thoughts, and over time, those thoughts stop controlling you. You take back the steering wheel. You stop surviving and start designing. The world doesn't need more hustle. It needs more clarity. And clarity starts in silence. I used to wake up every morning already behind. Before my feet even hit the floor, my brain was racing, thinking about emails I hadn't answered, bills I hadn't paid, goals I hadn't reached. The alarm would go off. I'd grab my phone, and instantly I'd be pulled into the world, scrolling, comparing, reacting, feeling like I wasn't doing enough. That was my normal. And I didn't realize how destructive it was until I broke the pattern. When I decided to commit to meditation for 90 days, the first change I made wasn't just sitting. In silence, it was how I started my day. I stopped reaching for my phone. I stopped checking notifications, news, or messages. Instead, I got up and sat in silence. Just me, my breath, and the space I had always avoided. That one shift, how I started my morning, completely changed the trajectory of everything else. See, your morning routine is the foundation of your entire day, and if you start from a place of chaos, you will carry that energy into every decision you make. But if you start from clarity, you act with precision. You don't just do more, you do the right things. Meditation in the morning taught me how to respond, not react. It gave me space, and that space created strategy. Most people don't understand how powerful that first hour of the day is. We treat it like an afterthought. We rush it. But those early moments are when your brain is most vulnerable to suggestion. Whatever you feed it, stress, silence, fear, peace, becomes the tone for your whole day. I chose silence. I chose intention. And I never went back. Here's the thing. When you change your mornings, you change your mindset. When I meditated, first thing, it wasn't just about relaxation. It was about setting my internal compass. I asked myself better questions. I started journaling what I was grateful for, what I was working toward, and who I needed to be to get there. That combination, meditation, reflection, clarity, became a mental operating system. I didn't have to guess what mattered. I knew. Every single day. And the impact was insane. My productivity doubled. Not because I was doing more, but because I wasn't wasting energy on the wrong things. I stopped multitasking. I stopped saying yes to distractions. I started focusing like my time actually mattered. Because it does. That's something most people don't realize until they're burned out. Every yes is a no to something else. Meditation made me conscious of what I was saying yes to. And more importantly, what I was saying no to. Now let's talk about something deeper. I started to realize that my identity was being shaped by how I showed up daily. Before, I was someone who reacted, someone who felt anxious and scattered. But once I got intentional with my mornings, I became someone who was calm under pressure, someone who could lead, who could build, who could stay locked in. And when you start seeing yourself that way, you start moving different. You stop chasing validation. You stop trying to prove yourself. You just move, quietly, confidently, and with conviction. I remember one morning about halfway through the 90 days. I had a big decision to make. Something that could have made or cost me a lot of money. Normally, I'd ask 10 people for their opinion. spiral into analysis paralysis, then delay the decision out of fear. But that morning, I sat in silence, like I always did. And instead of trying to figure it out, I listened. I let the answer come. And it did, with clarity. I made the move, and it turned out to be one of the most profitable choices I'd made all year. Not because it was perfect, but because it was aligned. That's what a powerful morning routine gives you. Alignment. And alignment is worth more than hustle. When you're aligned, you don't waste time chasing the wrong things. You're not frantic. You're not reactive. You're focused. You know where you're going. And you get there faster because your energy isn't leaking everywhere. I also became more consistent. Because once you feel the benefits of starting your day right, you don't want to go back. I stopped needing motivation. I didn't have to hype myself up. I had a system, a ritual, a way to anchor myself before I faced the world. It didn't matter if I was tired, stressed, or had a million things to do. My first move was always inward. That consistency created momentum. And that momentum created results. People think success is about working hard. And yes, effort matters. But what matters more is where that effort goes. Meditation gave me the awareness to focus my energy, like a laser, not a flashlight. That's the difference between being busy and being effective. And in business, effectiveness wins. So, no. My morning routine wasn't magic. It was discipline. It was about choosing myself before the world had a chance to pull me in 100 directions. It was about starting from stillness so I could move, with power. Everything changed when I stopped starting my day in reaction and started starting it in reflection. I used to believe that results came from doing more. Work harder, hustle longer, sleep less, move faster. This was the mindset I lived by for years. But no matter how much I pushed, something always felt off. I was moving, yes, but I wasn't aligned. I wasn't clear. It was like running on a treadmill, sweating, tired, burned out, but never getting anywhere new. What meditation taught me, what I learned deep in the silence, was that real transformation doesn't come from more noise. It comes from less. Less clutter, less mental chatter, less chaos. Inner silence, I realized, creates outer results. Most people are so used to the noise that silence feels threatening. We're surrounded by notifications, endless content, opinions, and constant pressure to perform. There's no space to hear our own thoughts, let alone trust them. I was the same way. I'd sit down to work and feel this constant pressure to keep moving, even if I didn't know where I was going. I was chasing numbers, validation, approval. I thought success came from sprinting, but when I started meditating, really meditating, I learned that most of the power I was looking for wasn't outside of me. It was buried under all that noise. Every morning, when I sat down in silence, I'd feel it. The tension, the restlessness. That part of me that wanted to grab my phone, check my messages, dive into the to-do list. But the more I resisted that urge, the more I realized how addicted I'd become to distraction. Meditation forced me to confront that, to be still, to listen. And as I kept showing up, something began to shift. The silence stopped feeling empty. It started feeling full of answers I'd been too busy to hear. I started visualizing the version of myself I wanted to become. Not just a millionaire, but a calm, grounded, purposeful leader. A person who didn't need to prove anything, who moved with certainty, who could walk into a room and shift the energy just by being present. Every morning, I saw him in my mind. I imagined how he walked, how he spoke, how he made decisions. And then, after meditation, I started acting like him. One small step at a time. That's when things changed. It wasn't magic. It wasn't luck. It was alignment. The vision I held in my mind started to influence the way I moved in real life. I stopped playing small. I stopped second-guessing. I started saying no to things that didn't fit the bigger picture, even when they looked good on the surface. I stopped chasing clients, opportunities, relationships that drained me, because I finally knew what I was building. That vision came from the silence. You know what's funny? People think success is loud, flashy, visible. But the real work is quiet. It happens when no one's watching, in the early mornings, in the stillness, in the way you talk to yourself when things aren't going your way. That's where the winners are built. Not on stage, not on social media, but in silence. Meditation gave me access to that space. It showed me that I didn't need to seek approval. I needed to get in alignment with who I really was. I stopped chasing money out of desperation. I started attracting it out of clarity. Because when you're aligned, you don't have to force things. You move from a deeper place. People feel it. Clients feel it. Opportunities feel it. You're not scattered. You're not needy. You're not trying to prove anything. You're just showing up as the most grounded version of yourself. And that energy is magnetic. There's a power in not being pulled by every wave. Before, I'd get thrown off by the smallest thing. A bad email, a slow day, someone's opinion. But meditation gave me emotional stability. It created a gap between the world and my response to it. And in that gap, I found freedom. I wasn't a slave to my moods anymore. I didn't make decisions out of fear. I moved from a place of peace. That peace became my competitive advantage. It's funny. People ask me how I became a millionaire. They want a tactic, a hack, a shortcut. But what I really did was sit in silence and get honest. I cleared the noise. I stopped running from myself. And in that stillness, I found my power. I started living like the person I wanted to become. And that person made decisions differently, spoke differently, took risks differently. That shift, the internal one, is what created the external results. The world will always tell you to do more, push harder, grind longer. But I'm telling you, don't underestimate the power of stillness. Don't underestimate what happens when you stop trying to be impressive and start trying to be aligned. That alignment changes everything. It changed how I think, how I feel, how I show up. And eventually, it changed how much I earn. The external world is just a mirror. What you see out there reflects what's happening in here. So if you want bigger results, more money, deeper relationships, it doesn't start with a to-do list. It starts with silence and the courage to sit in it. When I say meditation made me a millionaire, most people assume I'm talking about mindset or manifestation. And yes, mindset matters, but that's not the whole story. What meditation really gave me, the thing that made everything else possible, was stability. Emotional stability. Mental clarity. Inner strength. It made me unshakable. And when you become unshakable, the world responds differently to you. I didn't always have that kind of stability. Before I started meditating, I was constantly thrown off by everything around me. A slow sales month would make me doubt everything. One negative comment would make me question my worth. I was constantly on edge, second-guessing myself, comparing myself, reacting instead of leading. And the problem with being that reactive is that your whole life becomes a roller coaster. One day you're motivated, the next you're spiraling. One day you're focused, the next you're distracted. It's impossible to build anything lasting in that kind of mental state. But meditation changed that. It didn't just calm me down, it strengthened me. People confuse stillness with softness. They think silence is weak, but real stillness is the opposite of weakness. It's control. It's the ability to sit with discomfort without panicking. It's the ability to feel fear, without letting it drive your decisions. That's power, and that's what meditation gave me. Over time, I noticed I wasn't as easily rattled. I could sit in tension and not flinch. I could face uncertainty and still move forward. I wasn't thrown by temporary setbacks. I became steady, and that steadiness gave me leverage. Because in a world that's constantly spinning, the person who stays calm holds the advantage. It's easy to show up when things are going well. It's easy to be confident when everything's working in your favor. But what about when it's not? What about when the deal falls through, the numbers are low, the feedback is harsh? That's when your inner state matters most. And before meditation, I didn't have that kind of control. I used to get hijacked by my emotions. One bad moment could derail my entire day. But the more I trained my mind to return to stillness, the less power those moments had over me. I remember a very specific day about 2/3 into the 90-day meditation journey. I got hit with a wave of unexpected challenges, financial pressure, a partnership falling through, even personal stuff all colliding at once. The old me would have spiraled. I would have gone into panic mode, started overthinking, maybe even made a few rash decisions to relieve the pressure. But that day, I didn't flinch. I sat. I breathed. I reminded myself that the storm wasn't permanent. And then I got back to work, with clarity, not chaos. That moment showed me how far I'd come. Not because life got easier, but because I got stronger. Meditation gave me a level of composure I didn't know was possible. And that composure allowed me to lead. In business, people follow energy. Clients, investors, partners, they all want to know one thing. Can you handle pressure? Can you hold your vision even when it's not working yet? If you can, they'll trust you. If you can't, they'll sense it, and that uncertainty will cost you. When I became grounded, I became a magnet. People trusted me more. They listened differently. Opportunities opened up because I wasn't operating from desperation. I was operating from presence. That presence is a superpower. It's not loud. It's not flashy. But it's unmistakable. It's the difference between someone who's scattered and someone who's locked in, someone who's faking confidence and someone who's built it from the inside out. That's what meditation builds, real confidence. Not the kind that depends on validation or results, but the kind that shows up every day, regardless of circumstances. And here's the thing. Once you become that person, steady, focused, emotionally intelligent, everything else becomes easier. You make better decisions. You waste less energy. You navigate challenges without losing momentum. And that consistency compounds. It's not dramatic, but it's powerful. Day after day, you show up with the same centered energy. And eventually, the world starts moving in your favor, not because it changed, but because you did. Meditation made me unshakable, and that made me effective. In meetings, I wasn't nervous. In negotiations, I wasn't rushed. In moments of doubt, I didn't fold. I stayed grounded. And grounded people build lasting things. They're not chasing shiny objects or burning out trying to prove something. They know who they are. They move with intention, and they stay the course even when it's hard. That's who I became over those 90 days. Not just someone who meditated, but someone who rebuilt his identity from the inside out. I stopped seeing myself as someone who needed to hustle for every inch. I became someone who created value from a place of calm power. I trusted myself more. I respected myself more. And because of that, I moved differently.